Welcome to the ABA Journal Legal Rebels podcast, where we talk to men and women who are remaking the legal profession, changing the way the law is practiced, and setting standards that will guide us into the future.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of the ABA Journal's Legal Trailblazer series. My name is Victor Lee, and I'm a legal affairs writer with the ABA Journal. Today, I'll be chatting with Roland Vogl, Executive Director of the Stanford Program in Law, Science, and Technology. Vogl co-founded the Center for Legal Informatics, also known as CodeX, at Stanford Law School, and he researches international technology law through the Transatlantic Technology Law Forum, a think tank dedicated to transatlantic tech law and policy issues. It's great to have you on the show, Roland. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself? What made you decide to become a lawyer, and what drew you specifically to technology?
So, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. I mean, at least since I was 10 years old, I thought that was a great profession and a very noble profession where people stand up for other people and help them pursue their rights and help justice prevail. I have grown up in Austria and came to the U.S. about 17 years ago for getting my master's at Stanford Law School. And at the time, I got more and more interested in the legal issues that the internet raised, from protecting privacy to copyright protection on the internet. And then after my graduation, I worked for a short time in private practice, found an opportunity to come back to the law school as a teaching fellow in a new LLM program in law science and technology that we started in 2002. And then a few years into that, I met some people in the computer science department who saw opportunity in bringing kind of new advances in the computer sciences to the legal system. And we teamed up and founded CodeX. And what excites me about legal informatics is that it's very applied and it tries to tackle complex legal problems and create sort of real-world solutions for people. So that's what really inspires me and gets me up in the morning. So,
great. So CodeX is a big deal in legal tech circles, but it might not be as well known to people who are outside of those circles. So how would you describe CodeX to someone who might not be too familiar with it? And what are some things that CodeX has been responsible for over the years?
Sure. So CodeX is a joint center between Stanford Law School and the computer science department. Our mission is to develop information technology that makes the legal system more efficient for all stakeholders in the legal system. Our motto is legal empowerment through information technology. So we have a very strong access to justice mission that is part of the center. We have developed several projects that were initially research projects at the law school and in CodeX, and some of those projects then ultimately went the startup route and became companies like Lex Machina, which was the first spin-off really from Stanford Law School. That was based on Professor Lemley's empirical research. He's really sort of one of the leading empirical IP scholars in the world, and he said there's a lot of guesswork out there on what's happening in the IP system. Let's get some real empirical data, and so we created this intellectual property litigation clearinghouse research project, and then later this became Lex Machina, a startup that was recently acquired by LexisNexis. And another project, the CIPX project, that had to do with copyright clearance, also started as a research project and then ultimately became a startup, which was acquired by a publishing company. So we've had these spin-offs, but we also have a group of very entrepreneurially minded fellows and students involved in the center, and they are working on their own, in collaboration with the center. They're working on their own startups that are, changing the way that the law is accessed, or that certain legal processes can be, handled or automated. And those, fellows who work with us, and they also, those entrepreneurial fellows, they I think they're really some of the kind of leading the pack, I think, in the legal innovation space. Rebel folks, CodeX fellows, Case Text, many others that are doing really important work in advancing the legal innovation agenda. And so I think they've been at it for a couple of years now, and I think they're quite successful in a marketplace, and law firms are starting to embrace these new technologies. And so I think we're at the point where we're going to see some pretty significant change in the way that legal services are provided, and some of that change I think is can be. I don't want to toot my own horn, but some of that can be traced back to the very lively legal innovation ecosystem that has grown over the past years around CodeX.
Well, speaking of Lex Machina and Vogl, I wanted to get your take on predictive analytics. It seems like this area is starting to take off and that lawyers are starting to use it more, especially when it comes to planning out litigation strategies, deciding whether or not to bring cases, deciding which judges to go in front of, and things along those lines, and trying to forecast how long these cases might take. Do you think, obviously there are other uses of predictive analytics, like in forecasting costs and planning budgets. Do you think that using predictive analytics in those other areas will catch on, or is it still too early for you to tell?
That's a great question, too. So I think you're right. There's been a lot of attention to predictive analytics in the law, whole area of big data law. I think it's Lex Machina. I think it's been really the trailblazer in that area. There's other companies that have been started since then, and that do similar things in other areas of the law. So I think it is coming to many different areas of the law. Interestingly, it started at sort of in the field of kind of high value litigation, like IP litigation, high stakes litigation, and I've met some people who are talking about bringing this approach now even to simple kind of run-of-the-mill landlord-tenant disputes. And I think it just makes a whole lot of sense to just get more data about what people or parties in similar situations, have done, or how judges in certain situations have decided. That's very informative and important information for parties to make decisions on how to navigate a particular dispute. So it makes a lot of sense from that point of view. The whole aspect of legal prediction makes a lot of lawyers understandably uncomfortable. It's that, sort of predicting, legal outcomes, what lawyers have traditionally thought of being sort of very core to their mission and to their role of lawyers, and the thought of a machine being able to do some of that sort of raises the specter of the robo-lawyer. And I think, I think we're many years, if not decades away from robo-lawyer displacing lawyers. But it is, I think, one thing that a lot of companies trying to sell that technology to lawyers facing, this kind of, question from their prospective customers, whether, this technology is actually lawyer enhancing or lawyer replacing. And so I think, it's an area at the moment is growing. I think, definitely companies like Lex Machina or, Docket Alarm and others, I think making great inroads with law firms. And I think this approach will become more and more of a standard. And I think that, law firms that will not leverage data will be at a disadvantage vis-a-vis law firms that do. And so I think, yes, it's an up and coming area, but I still think we're talking about lawyer enhancing technologies and not lawyer displacing technologies at this point. 10 years from now, I don't know if there are certain areas of legal practice that might be displaced by some of those predictive analytics systems.
Right. Well, being in Silicon Valley and especially Stanford Law School, it seems like you're surrounded by innovative entrepreneurial types.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it like when you step out of that environment? Like, do you find that lawyers and legal professionals are less concerned about this kind of stuff? Do you have to tailor your message differently when you're speaking with them?
Yes, I think that's a great question too. We're definitely surrounded by a lot of Silicon Valley types, Stanford types here, very ambitious and who sort of envisioning and building a different world for the future. When I talk to people in legal practice, law firm managers, I don't think there is a tremendous fear about being disrupted, and sort of this legal disruption that we've read a lot about in recent years. And I think what we see there is a little bit more kind of incremental change. And so yes, I certainly have to adjust my message talking to those firms, but at the same time, I think there is now more than ever a kind of a curiosity and an interest in what's coming. I think certain things, even just that notion of the robo-lawyer that, most practicing lawyers would have kind of laughed at, 10 years ago. Now, with, some of the advances that we've seen, that seems like, a plausible possible scenario, a potential threat in the future. And so I see law firms being definitely open and interested in doing things differently and, making their certain, not just in terms of the technologies they use, but just in the way the business of the law firm can work and how legal expertise, the legal knowledge that's held inside law firms, how that can be made available more efficiently to the clients. There's been a lot of pressure on law firms to reduce their cost and to increase, to provide more value basically to the clients, to do more for less. And so law firms are feeling that pressure, and I think they're looking to technology, but also new kind of business processes to deliver their expertise to their clients and yet sort of create a kind of a unique kind of value proposition and keep that link with the client. And so, yes, I think, there is more, for a lot of law firms, business is still going quite well. I mean, I think it's been not as growing as dramatically as it has up until the recession. Some people say, this kind of flattening revenue in law firms is basically just a reflection of the economy. Some people say there is just a lot of new competitors on the market that are eating away at the law firm's business. And, so I think, I'm meeting out in, among legal practitioners, I'm meeting, some people who are more sort of sensitized to like all these kind of technological changes that are coming, and others that are feeling like, well, we're doing quite well and it's going to continue like that for a long time, and that, all this talk about disruption, legal disruption, is all just hype. So I'm kind of in my role. I see myself. I'm very much like a believer in legal innovation. I think that's the role that my center has, to be sort of a platform where so this really important thought leadership and discourse on new law and legal innovation can take place. But I also want to kind of modulate myself and not be speaking about something that people in the practice of law can't really relate to. And I've been trying to also, for me, to better understand, what are some of the barriers to innovation and the barriers to change in legal practice. And that's really what I've also been focusing my own research on in particularly this recent year. So yeah, I think change is coming. It's coming more slowly than a lot of people have predicted, but I think it's coming, and it will differ from depending on which kind of practice area we're talking about. But I've seen a lot of exciting new things coming, and obviously not all startups will succeed, but some will, and I think some have the potential to really change the way that legal services are delivered.
Great. So to kind of get into that about what's coming down the pipes, without giving away the secret sauce, what's on the horizon from CodeX? What are some things that you're working on now, and what are some types of tools you think will be important in the coming years?
So I think that's a great question too. Our focus area in legal informatics is in the area of computational law. And computational law is basically concerned with sort of the mechanization and automation of legal analysis. And so the classic example we always give is, TurboTax is an example of computational law. It's a system that understands all the rules of the tax code, and it understands important facts about the user, and then it applies the tax code to those facts and comes out with a legal decision, which is basically how much you owe the government or how much the government owes you in taxes. So that's an example for computational law. Other examples would be this whole area of computable contracts, smart contracts, so-called self-executing contracts. And that's an area where we have a research project, actually both in the general computational law area and in the computable contracts area, we have a research effort going on, and that's an area that's of great interest to us. We also have a research project in the field of projects called Smart Prosecution. That's a project that we worked on with the San Francisco District Attorney, where we helped the district attorney to go through 4,000 arrest reports that were made in conjunction with arrests that 14 officers made that were either fired or suspended from the police force for racist text messages that they send among each other. And we've been trying to help them analyze those arrest reports, trying to filter out all the data points, put it in a structured database to then start an analysis to help the district attorney maybe create a tool that will help them maybe better understand those arrest reports and maybe identify certain arrests that may have been where racial bias or other biases may have played a role in making the arrest. So that's another area. So I think all of those areas, I think those are continuing research areas for us that I think hold great potential for the legal system. One on just creating more computable law systems. I think so this is more a kind of basic research project going on, and we're actually thinking about some partnerships with the government there, where we could potentially help. And we haven't announced it yet, but we would help maybe a government agency with using this computable law approach in adjudication of certain cases. So this is an important project for us. Computable contracts has been, it's been a lot of talk about that. It's really early stages still, and a lot of people talk about those contracts, putting them on a blockchain and then automating certain contract obligations. I think that's an exciting area for us. I think we'll generally see much interesting innovation in that area. So this whole area of bringing sort of big data analysis to not just the criminal justice system but also to government, I think will provide increased transparency and understanding of how the government works, and so I think that's an important area where we'll see more innovation in that space, which I think is great. And then in terms of another trend that I'm seeing is this whole chatbot area. We see a lot of chatbots used for kind of discrete little but interesting use cases in law. So there's this, I think it's also a Stanford student here, creating this chatbot that helps you challenge a parking ticket. They unleashed that, I think, in London and in New York, and it helped challenge already millions of dollars of parking citations. And I think the person who started that, he will do the same thing now for. I think he wanted to use that approach to help people claim certain social benefits. There's a group of other innovators that I recently met. They're using this chatbot approach for applying for visa. So I think that there will be a trend in that direction to for very specific kind of use cases in law, to have a chatbot kind of walk you through and make it very conversational and help you gather the information, and then submit it to the government agency or whatever the receiving side is, all the materials, and it's something that helps you save time and money, and I think that's I think that there'll be more of those kind of chatbots. Also, a student here has been working on a chatbot for medical insurance, so you can quickly check whether certain services that you need, whether they're covered by your plan, things like that. So I think there's definitely a trend in that direction.
Gotcha. Thanks for joining us today, Roland. If our listeners would like to get in touch with you for whatever reason, what's the best way to do it?
Well, thank you for having me. If your listeners want to get in touch with me, my email is rvogl@law.stanford.edu. Again, rvogl@law.stanford.edu. And I would love to hear from you.
Great. This has been the ABA Journal's Legal Trailblazers podcast. Victor Lee signing off.
If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit legalrebels.com, legaltalknetwork.com, subscribe via iTunes and RSS, find both the ABA Journal and Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or download the free apps from ABA Journal and Legal Talk Network in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.